Bhaskar, our colleague, is there at Bangalore with Professor Sir. He is presenting shawl and shriffle on behalf of the entire NCL family. He was to be here to be connected with us physically, but somehow he couldn't make it that, sir. We welcome you once again to the Northern Coalfields Limited family and to SHRAM 2021. Now it's time that will be blessed with your wisdom words, sir. I hand over the stage to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. First, let me check whether you are able to hear me or not. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Is there some way you can signal me that you are able to hear me? Hello?
We can get you, sir. We are getting you.
Are they able to hear me? May I go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You can hear me, right?
Sir, I couldn't get it. Sir, please pardon, sir. Pardon, sir. Pardon, sir.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank...
वॉल्यूम थोड़ा बढ़ाइएगा, वॉल्यूम.
Northern Coalfields, Vinay Ranjan, Charles, and all the others who are responsible for this very great conference. I think one significant thing of this conference is you have already declared that the pandemic is over. When Vinay contacted me a couple of months ago, I practically took it as a virtual kind of a conference. I didn't realize that it is on a virtual mode and we are all physically there. And it's so exciting to see so many of you present there. And I feel a little guilty that I am not being able to be present. And it is so nice and touching gesture on the part of Northern Coalfields to send a special person here to make sure that I am with you and also to give this little bouquet and so on. Thank you very much, and I want to wish you all the best in this particular kind of a conference. The theme you have chosen for this conference is a very, very important theme. And the topic on which you have asked me to address is holistic approach to talent management for business sustainability. Don't worry about all these terms. I think all that is that how do we use people to make business excellence, to bring business excellence. I have always maintained for the last 5 to 10 years that business and people are two sides of the same coin. In fact, it is not fair to say they are two sides of the same coin. I would want to say that business exists for people. People don't exist for business. Business exists for people. You look at any corporation, any organization across the world, the purpose of every organization, whether it is a public sector, private sector, multinational, not-for-profit, or even spiritual organizations, governments, non-governmental agencies, all organizations are meant to serve people. So people is the focus of business. So without people, and it is the people who make business happen. So without people, nothing can happen. That is why when you title the session as talent management for business sustainability, first of all, it is not necessary to talk of anything like sustainability without people. I think if people are not there, there is no business and there is no question of sustainability. For years I have maintained, when we heard from University of Michigan and many other places, HR is the strategic business partner. Dave Ulrich and a whole number of people have talked. HR as a business partner. But my view has been that HR is not a strategic business partner. It is something more. HR is business. There is no business without people. And I have taken this broad view. For several years, when I've been talking about it, I think people took as probably another rhetoric and didn't pay attention to this. But last 2 years, post-pandemic, we find the importance of people. You would have discovered in the last 2 years, once the coronavirus COVID-19 started, everything has become equal. Presidents of countries, prime ministers of countries, as well as in a place like India, migratory labor, they have all been subject to the same kind of a coronavirus. They had to protect themselves, they had to wear masks, they had to get vaccinated, they had to do a whole lot of things, irrespective of whether you are a prime minister or president of a country. You are not going to say, I don't want to be vaccinated. And you have seen for some of the top level leaders of some of the countries who said, no, there is no need for vaccines. What happened? They had to totally turn around. So the COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic has taught us that all people are equal. All people are equal, irrespective of your religion, caste, geographic place where you live, language you speak, how much of richness you have. In fact, in 1920 April, I wrote a little interesting observation that is just 2 months after the coronavirus has started spreading. I think it started in January, but March. It is in March, I think, we declared lockdown of the country. And then sometime by the end of March, we started clapping for corona warriors, which included not only doctors, nurses, everyone and so on. So this particular point of time when the coronavirus pandemic started and we got into this, I started telling people that now you see that the importance of corona warriors, and that is the doctors, nurses, not only doctors, nurses. It is said also the uh, the drivers of ambulances and the small, I mean, them to be small people, but they are not anymore small. The compounders, paramedical staff, auto rickshaw drivers, everyone became I'm on my
Sir, yes,
mobile.
sir. You're audible, sir. You're audible, sir. You're audible, you're audible, you're audible, you're audible.
Okay, wonderful. Uh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Apologize for the inconvenience. I think this technology seems to be a problem, and I want to thank you all for your patience. I was very quickly, I will recap if those of you who have missed what I was saying. I think the most important point that I've made was that the last 2 years of pandemic has demonstrated to us that people is the most important part of our business. People or HR is not anymore a strategic partner of business. I think it is business, people of business, because all organizations exist for business. Pandemic has brought out a lot of corona warriors, particularly the doctors, the paramedical staff, and a whole lot of other people. And we started calling a number of them. I mean, politicians. In fact, I keep saying that all heads of governments, the prime ministers, presidents, etc., have for a change become HR ministers, HRD ministers. Why I say that is because I think they had the single minded purpose of making sure that people have information, knowledge, and education so that they can live and they can live happily longer, protect themselves from coronavirus, and wear masks, get access to vaccination. So you find that last 2 years, almost every head of government across the world focused on making sure that people live good lives. Now, it is in this context, what is it that the HR has? In many corporations, in the last 1.5 years, if you look at, organizations have started saying HR has a very important role. What is the role? There is not much of a difference between what a HR manager does in a corporation and what the prime minister of a country or the president of a country or government servants, cabinet secretaries, all of the or CEOs of corporations do. Most important task for all of them was to make sure people have a healthy life. They are living free from disease. And it is not only that people are free from disease and they are healthy and they prevent themselves from coronavirus, they also have to make sure that the neighborhood is fine. If they travel to factories, they had to make sure that factories totally change their climate and make sure they provide all the facilities that are required. If they are working from home, HR manager job has become to make sure that all infrastructure is given. And HR manager for a change started understanding what are the difficult circumstances under which people are working. In fact, I conducted a small survey about a year ago when I was addressing one of your conferences of Coal India. We made a survey of some 50 and odd HR managers. And to my surprise, I discovered those who were staying closer to your facility felt more unhappy than those who were staying farther away from the facility. This was very interesting. Those who were staying farther away from the facility are working from home and they probably had a lot less stress, whereas those who are staying closer, I think, were even going to the factory and they were a lot more risk prone and so on. So they said they are not happy with working from home, those who are staying closer to the factory, whereas those who are staying farther away, several miles away, said they are quite happy now. They have saved time, they don't have to travel, and so on and so forth. Now, HR people have to understand, treat every human being as a human being, whether the person is working in the factory or working outside, working from home, traveling, etc. The HR had therefore a new role. The HR also had a role to make sure that the community is safe, because if you are living in a ill health conditions where there is not, I mean, today you see, I think all over in places like Delhi and all, people are talking about dengue fever or environment. I think the kind of air that is being bred. Uh, there are, in fact, jokes I am finding that somebody gets a rasgulla from Delhi to another place and they are all looking like gulab jamuns. And people are saying, no, 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 don't worry, these are rasgullas from coming from Delhi because they have all become black because we are Delhi is so polluted and so on. So environment has also become an important part of HR manager. As I mentioned, all CEOs, chief ministers, prime minister, everyone is concerned about education, welfare, well-being, and besides economic well-being. So HR manager that way is no different. In fact, I started saying for a long time, HR manager today is not only a provider of lives to people, savior of lives, but also is a provider of livelihood. If HR managers don't make sure that employees are available to manufacture, make coal, or transport it, or understand what is happening across the world, and take care of the insecurities, if any, that get generated and so on, then you are not being a good HR manager. So the point I am making is in these particular days, the world has totally changed. And the most important thing all of us HR people realize is we are in a world where access to information is for everyone. Every person, in fact, in our country, there are more mobile phones than the number of people, and everyone has access to internet. I have a driver who is helping me last couple of months, who drives me back and forth, and I was surprised to discover that he is illiterate. He doesn't know how to read and write. When I want to reach a particular place, he would just pick up his phone and speak into the phone and say that I want to go there, and he gets the direction for that through that particular phone. So today, literacy means Google literacy, internet literacy, health literacy, COVID literacy, and also business literacy. You can't anymore say, I don't care about what is happening to coal situation in the world. I think you better care about it. You should know how long the coal mines are going to last. Fortunately, I think they're going to last for quite a long time, so nothing to worry about. But you must also appreciate that most of the environmentalists are saying that look, we need to create a healthy atmosphere and therefore we must move towards renewable kind of energies. Friends, it is in the context of this changing world, I would like to say, what do we mean by talent management, holistic talent management? Last few years of my work, why few years? I think if I look at last 50 years of my work, whatever work I have done in the country, have indicated something very interesting. The most important thing that my last few years of work have indicated is that talent talent is the property of every single person who is born. All of us are born with bundles of talents. So when you say talent management, the most important thing for us is to discover the talent in you. Who thought the person whose mother was English and making sure that he will survive, he has good education, becomes the president, most valued president of a country like India, Dr. Abdul Kalam? Or who thought that a very ordinary person like Dr. Swaminathan brings white revolution, the rice revolution, and Dr. Kurian brings white revolution. Ordinary person again, who was reluctant to go to Anand when he was posted as a result of a scholarship that he got to US on return. When he was posted to Anand, he didn't know where Anand was. And such a person, when he reached Anand and started looking at the, or a person who saw his father die of heart attack, Narayan Hridayalaya, Dr. Devi Shetty becomes such a great person, he influences management thinking. Or a person, if you go to the field of arts and so on, whom we lost very recently, S.P. Balasubramaniam, a great singer. Or in 1973, when I joined IIM Ahmedabad, I met a person who is working as a computer professional, a programmer in IIM Ahmedabad. He left the institute and came there, and he was regularly having a cup of tea with some of my friends there. 1973. I never thought this person will one day will make millions of people to be millionaires, and that is Narayan Murthy. And same way, I think his wife, Sudha Murthy, never thought, ordinary, born in an ordinary school, she's going to be the most influential person in terms of influencing the future of the country by telling stories to children. And the point I'm making, when you look at all these people, very important kind of people, you never know.
whether one of you could be like Abdul Kalam or Saminathan or Devi Shetty or Korean or Balasubramaniam, Narayan Murthy, Shivnarad, anyone, any one of them. It's never late. If some of you are in your 30s or 40s, don't worry. There are many great people who have become great after 30 years of life, 35 years of life, but they need to do some things. And that is what I want to say. If you have to manage your talent and have a holistic approach of talent management, you need to start single-minded goal in front of you, and that is to discover your potential, to discover your talent, to discover what you are good at. It's never too late. Normally people say that, I am a very sincere worker. I work for 9 to 5 in my company. I have no time to discover anything of my talent. My company is too constraining. I would want to say all manufacturing sectors, which I think the other day I was listening to Dr. Govindarajan of Tuck University. He was mentioning in about a century ago, most of the industries that started industrial revolution were manufacturing industries. Manufacturing industries were interested in mass scale production. And if you have to produce anything in mass scale, you have to follow discipline. You have to have quality requirements. You have to follow rules and regulations. You are hierarchically organized, and that still continues. But there are a large number of organizations today, I think, which are maybe 70-80% of the organizations, which are new economy industries. Either you talk of Google or Adobe or any IT companies, or you look at financial services companies or e-commerce. Phenomenally, they are bringing a lot of disruption in the world. Telecom companies and all of them. These are all interesting kind of companies which brought in a lot of disruption, and they are largely hierarchyless. They are hierarchyless because you need hierarchyless organizations to bring out the best in people. Organizations with hierarchy kill the talent by occupying people, mostly following rules, regulations, and sometimes senselessly, and not letting their creative talent prosper. But having said this, I would also say, as Govindarajan observed, for a manufacturing industry, it is very, very important to have a set of rules, regulations, and maybe certain amount of hierarchy. Therefore, what becomes important is, even if you are hierarchically organized and if you don't have much time to pursue your inner desires, inner goals, inner dreams, I say 9 to 5 only you are pursuing your organizational goals, which is not bad because you are contributing to the wealth of the nation. But 5 to 9, you can pursue other kind of things. Now, if you look at the time, 9 to 5 is only 8 hours. 5 to 9 is 16 hours. Even if you sleep for 6 hours, you are left with 10 hours. You have more than the office time for you available to discover your inner potential. Now, how do you discover your inner potential? Do not ever say, I am victim of circumstances. I am stuck. I think Govindarajan, my good friend, he was a colleague at IIM Ahmedabad a few years ago before he went and became number one in the top thinkers of the world. He lives in US. He topped in Harvard University. Not only as a student, also I think he got a good name. He teaches at Tuck University. He said a very interesting thing. He said India is a country of constraints, but India also is a country of opportunities. Most people look at constraints and kill themselves. If you can convert constraints into opportunities, then you build a country and responsible for development. I want to appeal to all our HR professionals. I think it is high time that we become sensitive to the importance of talent everyone carries, particularly talent. Do not use any of the systems that you have. Either it is recruitment, or it is induction program, or it is performance management, or it is learning and development, or it is organizational diagnosis development, or it is work from home. Any HR system you use should be liberating people to discover their inner talent, to help people to not only discover, apply the talent to the service of humanity. I have conducted two studies, very important studies, and both these are available in my books. One of the books I have written is called Managers Who Make a Difference. You simply type IIM books and put my name, you will get this book, Managers Who Make a Difference. I have identified four categories of managers. Now, what I said for managers is not only applicable for HR managers, it applies for every single employee. Uh, these people are first category. I call them as work, work people who are workers. Managers are also workers. Everyone who works is a worker. I used later a term called performers. Performers are those who keep performing whatever they are asked to perform. Organizations exist because of performers or workers. They are the backbone of a company. 90% of what organization produces is produced by those who toil their hands. These are workers. But interesting part of this particular category is that they are doers. They only do. They need a manual. They need guidelines. They need a boss. They need job description. They spend all their lives doing 9 to 5, do, achieve KRAs, KPAs, targets, and things like that. The second category, I call them as achievers. These are the people who do their work. They are a step higher than doers. They want to continue to keep on doing whatever they are told to do, but they want to do something more. They want to do something they are not told to do. They want to score better than their neighbor. These are achievers. Nowadays, it is these achievers who get admissions to English medium schools, who get admissions to places like Xavier Institute of Social Service or XLRI or IIMs and so on. And you know what happens when these chaps join these institutions? They also want to top, they want to get out, they want to get good grades and get good placement. And after they get good placement, you know what happens? They want to become general managers, presidents, vice presidents in a short time. So the achievement bugs continues to hit them, and they are constantly striving to do better, achieve better. They are all good, excellent people. They contribute a good deal to the economy of the country and so on. But they live their life only as, I think, people with fast career growth become president, CEO. After you become CEO, what do? I've seen many people who have set up, who worked in IT industry at the age of 35, became millionaires, then didn't know what to do. And some of them landed up in hospital. They had marital problems in the house. They had all kinds of other kind of, because they earned enough but didn't know how to live a good life. But there were other people who said that even as a student, I want to do things differently. This is the third category. I call them as visionaries, entrepreneurs. Some of you in the audience, I assume, are also entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the people who do their work like workers from 9 to 5, but 5 to 9, they are achievers or they think of doing new things. There are many cases, again, from institutions like IIM Ahmedabad. Somebody like, I'm sure some of you may have heard of a person, there are so many names, Vijay Mahajan, a person who said that I don't want corporate life and I want to work with NGOs, and started a body called Pradhan. Then he discovered there are a large number of people who don't have access to credit, and started another micro finance institution called Basics, and so on and so forth. And there was another boy who said that I don't want to a job which pays me 20-30 lakhs of rupees. What I want to do is, if somebody like me, he was born in a public sector company, his father was a DGM or a GM in one of the PSUs. He said, as son of a DGM, I had access to a good school education. You know, most of the colonies, we have Delhi public school branches and English medium schools. So he said, I had this opportunity, and therefore I could get into one of the IITs, then to IIMs. How about those millions of children who don't have access to English medium education? So he said, I don't want a job, but he started an organization in which main objective was to develop simple tools to educate municipal corporation children in science and technology, in mathematics and science. What a wonderful thing to do. Now, these are the people who think differently. I mean, these are the people who thought, all the names I have said, people like, I think, Devi Shetty thought differently, Doctor thought differently, Kurian thought differently, Narayan Murthy thought differently. These are all people who thought differently, and each one of us can think differently. So these are visionaries. And the fourth category, I call them as missionaries. These are the people who devote their life to one single important cause. Like I think ultimately, Korean happened to be a missionary. Mother Teresa happened to be a missionary. Now, you don't need these big names. There may be missionaries among the 300 of you sitting in this particular auditorium. You need to discover the missionary in you. That is your talent management. Now, how do you discover the missionary in you? You have to ask yourself, take a piece of paper and put on the piece of paper, what is the dream that you have? There are many stories that have appeared. I mean, all that you need to do is to go to YouTube and keep on surfing stories of unusual people who made great things happen, including the stories of those in recent past who have got their Padma Awards. Totally unheard of people who have got Padma Awards. There are lots and lots of things. So, a holistic approach to talent management is a desire to discover your inner talent. Now, some of you may be wondering, most of you are HR managers and people working for Coal India or Northern Coal Fields. You may be wondering, what is this Professor Rao is talking? He is asking us to leave our jobs and then start becoming entrepreneurs, visionaries, missionaries, and so on. No, no, not necessary. I'm not saying that. I am saying use your organization as an organization to discover your talent. You don't have to go out to discover. Even that 9 to 5 job you do, if you start looking at each other with respect, start looking at each other as a personified person. You don't know where is God in the neighbor that you are looking at. So everyone is talented. And you, as if you are a HR manager, you should ask yourself this question: are my HR interventions, an induction program, performance appraisal, and a training program, are they liberating people? Are they constraining people? Am I a constraint or am I a liberator? To me, I think this is the best way to manage your talent. For those of you who are not HR people, the best way to manage your talent is look inward. Every single book and literature that has come in the last 10 to 15 years is concluding to say the best way to become a leader is to manage yourself. Self-management is the beginning. Everyone you talk to, they will tell you, you will manage yourself. You have to manage yourself. So you manage yourself, you use all your HR interventions to manage other people around, and you create. I think this is the most important task of a HR manager. In fact, when Uday Parikh and I started the first department, which was called as Human Resource Development Department in Larsen and Toubro in the year 1974 and 75, we said the primary purpose of HRD is to make people build their competencies, commitment, and also create a lasting culture. These are the three things. And even today, doing all the three together becomes a distant dream. But I think this is a good dream for HR people to pursue. That our task is to constantly help people to build their talent, recognize their talent, leverage their talent. Competence building or talent building. Number two, also building commitment. When you conduct an engagement survey, normally you do it to fulfill a target. How many engagement surveys you conducted, how many people you have sampled. Now I say that is a very wrong way of using it, engagement surveys. When you conduct an engagement survey, I think the most important person who should benefit from the engagement survey is the person who replied to your survey. Do you make sure that he keeps a copy of the survey that you have conducted? Do you get back to that person and say, now let us look at your score? Now, and tell the person, your score is 40 out of 100. Too bad. We can't let you live with this unhappiness. Now let us sit with you and make sure how can you build it up to 80. If a person grows from 40 to 80, he can be a great contributor to his family, his society, and to the corporation. But there is not one way of increasing. Most people say, change your personal policies, I'll become more engaged. It's a very wrong way of looking at things. We are all, as I mentioned, we could be victims of circumstances. But don't victimize yourself by saying that I am a victim of circumstances. You say, I am master of my circumstances. If I am not engaged, I want to make sure that I am engaged. I take charge of my engagement. How can any HR department take charge of your engagement? Or how can any CEO take charge of your engagement? You have to take charge of your engagement And if every day you're walking back home with a 30% engagement score, you must be a miserable person. You may be creating misery in your entire family because they see you returning from office with a poker face. So don't say now HR should change its personnel policies or its appraisal system, promotions, etc., and make me become happy. Nobody else can make you happy than you. And therefore, the HR job is to help people to have this most important recognition. HR, unfortunately, in the past made people dependent on them. Many people think you're a HR guy, what are you doing for me? Sorry, you don't do anything for them. I think all that you can do is to create policies and practices which can enable people, which can help them to create, turn constraints into opportunities and so on. These are a little few insights that I am giving. I would strongly recommend you, if you have an opportunity, to read this interesting book that I have written. It is not just a research-based book. It is my reflection of 45 years of work in IIM Ahmedabad and outside, managers who make a difference. And if you have time, I would also request you to read another book I have written, which is how ordinary people have become great people, which either teachers, civil servants, social workers, uh, film actors, all of them, ordinary people at one time, how they have become wonderful kind of people, effective people. Now, this book is called Effective People. Again, you type Effective People, TV Rao, you will get it. And I have also sent you a small complimentary copy of Corporate Stress from TVRLS side. This is a free copy we have given you. If you have not got it, please ask Charles or anybody else who is going to supply this copy to you. This this is the magazine which we publish called Professional. This particular issue was brought out about 6 years ago, but I was going through every single issue, every single article in this has some important lessons to give you to how to keep yourself healthy, how to keep yourself stress free, how to get yourself the best out of your own kind of a life and so on. So thanks a lot for listening to me patiently, and I'm sorry about those 7-8 minutes we lost due to technology kind of issues. I'm glad that I'm able to spend some time with you. I want to wish you all the best, and I want to thank you once again. Thank Vinay and Charles for inviting me, and wish you all the best. And thanks a lot once again. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, sir. This was Professor Dr. T.V. Rao, sir, connected with us. Sir, kindly stay connected, sir. We had to honor Professor Dr. T.V. Rao, sir. We have a small video. I would now request Sri Sushil Gautam sir to kindly share it on WebEx. Sir, kindly stay connected, sir. A small video to honor you, sir, on this occasion.
Oh, that's okay.
Wait. Just a minute.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Shri Bhaskar Sharad, on our behalf, is presenting
Thank you.
memento to Professor T.V. Rao, sir. Pawan, kindly bring in the... Sir, we have also got your favorite quote framed with us. Your piece of knowledge that we have. As you always say...
Because I suggested that...
Please bring in. Sir, your favorite quote is with us. For me, HR is not a career. It is a philosophy and necessity and a way of life. I would like to request our camera team to kindly show it to Professor T.V. Rao, sir. Had you been here, sir, we would have received your autograph in person, but we have your framed quotation with us that we'll be keeping in our HR gallery. I would read it for you, sir. For me, HR is not a career. For me, HR is not a philosophy and necessity and way of life. Thank you so much, sir. I would request my team to kindly play the video. It was really nice to have you, sir, on board today. We received a lot of wisdom words, and especially for the holistic management of talent, it is first important to discover the talent in yourself. It is really important to discover the potential, the inner potential that you have. I suppose there's some technical problem, and if not, kindly please play the video. We'll share the video on WebEx to. Are we ready?
Professor T.V. Rao, the architect of human resource development in India. Dr. T.V. Rao is the chairman of T.V. Rao Learning Systems with over 42 years of extensive work in the field of HRD. Dr. T.V. Rao, one of the architects of HRD in India, conceptualized the HRD with late Dr. Uday Parikh. He served as a professor at the IIM Ahmedabad from 1973 to 1994. He is the founder of the National HRD Network, the first honorary director of the Academy of HRD India. He was also a visiting faculty at ISB Hyderabad and was the HRD advisor to the RBI. Dr. Rao was also part of the Administrative Reforms Commission to review the personnel management practices for civil services, and he also worked as an HRD consultant to UNESCO, Commonwealth Secretariat, London and other countries, covering over 100 organizations. Dr. Rao's leadership development methodology, known as 360-degree feedback, and the HRD audit methodology leading to HRD Scorecard 2500 were first of its kind of HRD intervention in the world. Dr. Rao has authored or edited over 60 books dealing with organizational behavior, HRD, entrepreneurship development. He is speaking on holistic approach to talent management for business sustainability in SHRAM 2021.
I once again thanks Professor Dr. T.V. Rao sir, and I request my colleague Bhaskar Sharad there to sign out of the session. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Bhaskar sir. Now, before we proceed for lunch, I have an important announcement. Professor sir has sent a magazine for the SHRAM 2021 conference that will be receiving probably by today evening or tomorrow. It's in transit. As soon as we receive it, we'll be distributing it either today evening or tomorrow. And if not, we'll be sending it through mail to all the delegates on your mail IDs. With this, before we proceed for lunch, I would like to invite Professor Nidhi Shukla ma'am to kindly come up on the dais, ma'am. We'll have a session of yours. But before that, I would request my team to kindly play the intro video of Nidhi Shukla ma'am. She is from XISS and she'll be delivering her lecture on emerging environmental, demographic and legal shifts, impact on HR landscape. Welcome you, ma'am. Pardon me. Half an hour. May I request our convener for SHRAM 2021, Shri Charles Juster sir, to kindly welcome ma'am with a floral bouquet. Convener for SHRAM 2021, Shri Charles Juster sir, welcoming Professor Nidhi Shukla ma'am. She has come long way from XISS to deliver her keynote address on today's occasion. Here's a brief intro of
Dr. Nidhi Shukla is an assistant professor at Human Resource Management Xavier Institute of Social Service, Ranchi. She belongs to Dhanbad and has been brought up in the environs of BCCL. Personnel management and industrial relations have been her area of interest with special weight to labor and industrial laws. She is currently pursuing her PhD in Role of Employment Laws in Developing an Inclusive Professional Environment for Working Women, which is helping her to understand gender roles and their impact on workplace inclusion. She is a member of the National Council for Mentoring and Soft Skills of the Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, where associated with platforms of gender sensitization and conscious workplaces. She is speaking on emerging environmental, demographic and legal shifts, impact on HR landscape in SHRAM 2021.
A very good afternoon, distinguished guests, dignitaries, officers, and audience. Among the audience, I have many of my students, and it was indeed a pleasure to meet, pleasant surprise to meet them here. I do have a presentation, but I think due to the paucity of time, I would skip presenting it, and I do have my transcript, so I'll go ahead with it. The topic that has been given to me is emerging demographic, environmental and legal shifts, impact on landscape, impact on HR landscape. Now I am here and it's a deja vu moment for me. Coal India for me is home. Coal India is family for me. I'm a daughter of Coal India in whichever way you would, any which way you would like to believe. Born to an officer in the personnel department who retired from the personnel department in '91, and after retired after getting me married off to a trade unionist son in Dhanbad. So I have IR and labor law in my DNA, and it's not through academic interface that I have come across with IR or I have an orientation towards IR. It's there in my DNA, it's there because I feel about it, it's there because it is an area of interest for me. My lived experiences account for my natural inclination in personnel management and IR, and that became my stream of higher education at XISS. Yes, I am a proud alumna of XISS. So I must say it's an overwhelming experience for me to be here. When I discussed about this topic with colleagues, friends, and people in this field, it was brought to my notice that it is a very comprehensive topic. It is encompassing many areas, and it would be a challenge to include all aspects of these two paradigms and dimensions in the HR landscape. And yes, I did realize that it is a very comprehensive one, but then it is as comprehensive as HR landscape itself is. It actually sums up the HR landscape. Because we fulfill our dreams through the world we create for ourselves, and which is best felt and experienced through the relations we create, the relations we establish. The HR landscape is our world. When I say it is comprehensive and integrated, this is what I mean. We work for an industry. Industry for us, we know by its definition itself, is a systematic activity. It creates an ecosystem, impacts and gets impacted by this ecosystem. So environment, demography, and regulatory dimensions form this ecosystem. And when we say it is an integration of all these dimensions, the HR landscape comes to the fore, because that encompasses all that needs to be done for achieving the desired outcomes, and therefore it needs to align all the culture of the existing systematic activity with the ecosystem. Now coming to the first dimension, which is the environmental. We, being in the coal industry, are faced not just with the prospects of a growing industry, the prospects of the growing demands, the prospects of the role of coal in the energy, in the energy sector, but we are also faced with a challenge, the challenge of climate change. And the recently concluded COP26 has made us aware that coal has been brought to the very draft, to the very text of the pact that has been discussed about. It is very important for us to realize the aspect which has been now put forward in the international platform, and which becomes a commitment we cannot shy away from. But again, the provision for secure, affordable, and sustainable energy is one of the major challenges for the fast-growing economy of India. And historically, we are characterized by three important aspects which give us hope in terms of where we stand in terms of energy and the greenhouse emission quotient that we are so concerned about in the recent times. We have moved from a low productivity agriculture to a high productivity industry, from low energy consumption to high energy consumption, a fossil fuel based energy system, from simple rural economy to a complex process of urbanization and infrastructure development. High energy consumption and heavy reliance on coal, the most abundant and cost effective resource. But then there is again, like I said right in the beginning, there is an environmental dimension we cannot shy away from. Commercial primary energy consumption in India has grown multifold, and energy consumption by the rising population with its rising quest for a quality life is expected to continue to rise. That creates the demand we can depend upon and can still go on increasing the production of coal. But we are faced with a dilemma. We do need to increase the production of coal, and we know that the demands are there and it's going to remain for quite some time. Coal is going to remain with us for quite some time as a major source of energy. But limited reserve potentiality of petroleum and natural gas, and eco-conservation restriction on hydel project, and geopolitical perception of nuclear power, coal will continue to occupy the center stage for some time. The environmental shift that we need to take into consideration is something that is going to create the HR landscape, which is going to address the dilemma that we face. Environmental concerns have risen up to the ranks of policy priorities. Worsening of environmental challenges such as local air pollution and water scarcity, something that I have grown up with right from the beginning, and it was never felt like a challenge in my childhood years when blackened school uniforms were a part of our life. We identified with our workers, our miners, and even a parent returning from his work in the evening. So it was not dirt, or it was the dust that was the bread and the bread winning agency for us. So we never felt that coal was dirty or coal was black. It was something that shone our lives in terms of what we earned through. So increasing cognizance of the threats posed by global climate change to Indian sustainable development is something that some deep down pricks my heart. Some deep down hits my heart when we speak of the challenges coal India needs to face. Increasing economic competitiveness of alternatives to fossils, notably in the power sector, is something that will also stay with us for quite some time. Environmental shift in the coal sector the coal transition, as we say. We have marched ahead in terms of climate change and the environmental implications and dimensions, from Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement and to COP26, the recently concluded one. Here, mitigation, adaptation, finance, loss and damage, carbon markets, and coal was brought for the first time into the text of the pact. The Glasgow Climate Pact was adopted, but not without the last-minute intervention by India, something we need to be relieved about, to water down the language on phasing out coal to phasing down. We may be happy for some time, we may be relieved for some time. The intervention has put us somewhere on the thinking platform where we need to think of alternatives to. The intention to abandon coal raised a controversy that brought the developed and the coal-reliant developing nations face to face. Countries, including India, have committed to net zero emissions by a target year. For India, it is 2070. But the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, remarked, it's time to go on the emergency mode. We have granted time, but not without the knowledge that our fragile planet is hanging on a thin thread. What is it that gets impacted in the HR landscape? We have been doing, I just spoke about these three international forums and platforms. What is it that we have been doing? We have been talking the walk. We need to understand what is the interface, what is the understanding between talking the walk and walking the talk. There has been so much of talking that it almost seems that that is what we are adept at. We started talking in Kyoto and failed. We continued talking in Paris and we faltered. We talked again in Glasgow and it has been a disappointment. Not a disappointment in terms of the complete acceptance of the pact, but in terms of the international community where the developing countries and the developed came face to face and the developed ones failed to understand the aspects and the compulsions on the developing nations. We have to survive and emerge winners. VUCA is not just a trendy management acronym. It is there as a challenge for each one of us. Those who do the talking of the walk will get it materialized only through the walking of the talk done by us as individuals. Individuals who create the HR landscape, individuals who run the HR landscape and who are going to be answerable and accountable for it. We have to foresee, draw assumptions, plan strategies, execute and justify the actions. The talkers speak of net zero emission and set target dates. What happens? Emissions during the COP26 reach 1,02,500 tons of carbon dioxide, double the emissions in the Madrid summit. 60% of the emissions came from international flights, but in Glasgow, low carbon public transport ferried people to and from venue. Now, in a lighter but a serious note, even this reading set me wondering as to why couldn't I have shared some vehicle right from Ranchi to this venue instead of having availed a single car for myself. But then, yes, it's not long before that it will have to mean all seriousness and less of a lighter note, anecdotal reference. The HR world who makes it happen? The HR world, of course. The HR world can make it happen. It all boils down to commitment, leadership, vision, organizational culture, values, and practices. And when I say that the talking has been done by leaders, they have set targets for us. That is what leaders do, worthy leaders as to what is it that they do. Leaders dream and we get their dreams fulfilled. And that is what the HR landscape needs to do. Diversifying business to suit environmental imperatives will require us to accept and assimilate change. AI and digital HR are the order of the day. We've already had a discussion and we know how it is going to affect us in a big way. Human resource management, is optimization of resource. Is not something that I need to tell people. It is all about optimization of resource. And how do we do it? By tapping all resources available in terms of information, knowledge, technology, digitization, whichever and whatever way we need to adopt. This is what we need to do. Technology augments this process, the process of us coming face to face the environmental demands and getting them corrected. So coal transition for us is going to mean HR transition too. There are divergent challenges. We still can't afford to go on increasing production because the demand is going to remain, and that demand is going to go on increasing with our population of 1.3 billion slated to rise to 1.6 somewhere around 2050. So as long as there is a population that demands energy consumption, we have hopes of going on increasing production and finding a market for it. But then we are, like I said, we are faced with a dilemma where we need to create a balance too. Increase production to meet the high demand. Coal is estimated to be losing economic, but it is going to lose its economic competitiveness versus the renewables, which again is a promise or a commitment that has been made by our Premier. Coal-fired power generation has outstripped demand growth, but the need for RE to replace the coal-fired generation is something that is knocking our doors. India will need both coal and renewable energy for quite some time, and the HR landscape will have to look beyond the horizon. What is it that we can expect from future? Preparedness, embracing technology, optimizing resources, managing transition, a big word, a big term, building trust, something that we have spoken about right in the beginning when we had our chairman talking about it. Instilling hope, that is what is needed. We need to see hope, we need to see trust building all around us, untraining and retraining to meet the needs of diversification, meeting the VUCA world head on. This brings me to the next dimension, which is the demographic aspect. If HR is going to make things happen, who is it that we are going to look up to? The millennials and the Gen Next, Gen Z. How do we deal with demographics if we do not acknowledge the entire spectrum of what is available and what can optimally contribute to the whole? India, with all its diversity and intersectional socio-cultural milieu, offers skills in all its hues. How do we tap it? India's favorable demographics have placed it in an enviable position in the world. Why? Because the world is an aging world, and we are growing younger. Demographic characteristics of India, I said 1.3 billion, now will be 1.6 billion in 2050. It has the largest proportion of young people in the world. The working population from 15 to 64 constitutes 64% of the total. 20 to 25 years window of opportunity has been created by this demographic advantage that we have. But again, we keep on facing dilemmas. We are faced with the Malthusian trap, the middle income trap, and the capability trap. There are challenges we cannot ignore, because even before COVID struck, unemployment levels had hit a 45-year high. The pandemic has worsened the situation. The rural-urban divide stared us at our face when migrant workers appeared from nowhere, and we had no clue how many were there. We had no data as to what we are dealing with. What is the number? What are the numbers we are dealing with? It was something that we were taken aback and taken in surprise. But then a lockdown due to something that we had not foreseen was justified. We did have excuses. But what do we speak of the lockdowns that we are predicting or facing now in Delhi, where it was something that was foreseen for quite some years and had not been handled? We need to look into challenges, the dilemmas that we face right now for us to be able to cope in future. And the digital divide made this problem worse, and it came out in the open only when we knew that we had no preparedness to deal with it. This is the population we aspire to draw demographic dividend from. How do we do it? I spoke about the Malthusian trap. Malthus had very specifically mentioned that as the population grows and if it supersedes or if it overtakes agricultural production, it is something that the population itself will have to take care of. But then it is something that you can overcome. You can overcome the Malthusian trap through technology. And by technology, I do not mean the availability of technology, but the capability of being able to use and apply it. And that is the capability trap India is trapped in. We are not in a position to use our capability and get ourselves out of the Malthusian trap or even the middle income trap, because the middle income trap that we are trapped in requires institutional support, and an institutional support that is kind of matured from the mere lifting up of people from poverty line and increasing the scape or the area of the middle income group. That is not what it means. It's something that requires institutional support in terms of a mature institutional support which provides for regulation, provides for an environment wherein you can have transparency, you will have compliances, you will have people following instructions, we will have people following the imperatives, realizing the challenges. That is the kind of maturity that is required in the institutional setup for us to come out from these traps. Something that we need to delve deep into and give a lot of thought to. So these are the demographic taps, and how is it that the HR landscape is going to change with respect to changing with these challenges that we face. The new age millennials and Gen Z workforce are going to be the order of the day. We will have to accept SMAC technologies, which has got to do with social networking, mobile, artificial intelligence, all of this, the cloud space, all of it is something that we need to put our heads into. Then and how is it that it's going to play a role in our being able to address it? It's going to help us create a productive population. Managing diversity is something like you must have already seen that it's a topic that is very close to me because I come from that area and it's my area of even the research. And it is much, much beyond what we would like to accept or believe or even like to practice. I wouldn't shy away from saying that the presence, it's not participation alone. Participation, you go beyond that. You create opportunities for being present. It's not mere participation because that is about numbers. And even if we look into numbers, the numbers are not happening. We have moved much beyond. We are not talking about, first we started about when we spoke of gender equality, we started speaking about LGBTQ, but that itself is growing and widening its space to include I, A, 2S and whatnot. It is not simply LGBTQ. It goes on increasing with our acceptance of the presence, the opportunities that we need to create for them to be present, and then valuing the presence of people who are available to us. So that is the kind of landscape that we are looking for when we need to actually draw out demographic dividends as we are speaking of. Unless we have policies and protocol that help us harness this demographic dividend, we may well find ourselves having a large number of unemployed and underemployed working age individuals having no clue to what to do with their lives. But all is not lost. And when I say that the kind of institutional support that we need for maturing into a population or maturing into a people of 1.3 billion number, how is it that we are going to face it? Through regulations. And like I said, mature enough to accept what regulates our lives, what is required out of us to do as people, as individuals, and as leaders who show vision or dare to dream. Regulate, restrict, and interpret multidimensional relations, personal, social, as well as professional. Labor legislation, as opposed to social legislation, impacts our working relationships. The existing laws have seen us through the initial years after Industrial Revolution, through British rule, through LPG era, and now through a series of deliberations and debates which purports us to see us through challenges the industry, labor, and state is facing. The characteristics of Indian labor market: differentiated and segmented labor market, unbalanced pattern of growth, large percentage of informal workers, it's almost 93%. And when we speak of labor laws and go on speaking of labor laws and the whole framework of regulation, we need to keep reminding ourselves that we are talking about only those 6 and 7% till now. But that is where I say that we have hope, because the codification of the laws that has been done and the 4 codes have turned towards or stepped forward in terms of clarity, simplification, less of complexities, and the ability to comply. It is affording an opportunity for industry with an ability to actually have compliance as a practice, and compliance becomes the order of the day. Labor market largely unregulated and covered currently. I would not like to go into it, but the legal shift that is going to happen is something that I would like to stress upon. I've already said it's slated to bring about simplification, ease of doing business, ease of compliance. Formalization essentially is going to be one aspect which is going to affect us in a big way. And how does formalization happen? Even with the challenge of a large section or percentage of unorganized workers and a very small percentage of organized ones. It is this set of unorganized group, the large 93 or 94%, which comes within the fold of application through the Social Security Code, which which lays a lot of hope amongst us, who are not just teachers or people lecturing, like I have said, talking the walk. It's something that I'm wary of as an academician, because numbers have always frustrated us and have not allowed to move forward. It is the actual real-time impact and the outcome of what we do is what is a matter of concern for us. So it gives you labor flexibility, and that is, I'm just the last slide on legal aspect and I'll be done. But I can conclude even without that, because I thought, because I'm from that field, I could give small inputs from the legal, the codes as to what would be the HR landscape that is going to that can be expected from future. Wages have components, and that is something that we will have to be very careful of while complying. It is dealing with inclusive, exclusive, and a very important proviso which speaks of provided that, which is going to impact the calculation of total wages, against which percentages will have to calculate many of the social security aspects which have to do with contributions and which have to do with the take-home salary and the other aspects which are a matter of concern to employers. Components of CTC, something that we have to be very careful about. Social security broadens escape, and that is what is a major outstanding point. You have gig workers, platform workers, unorganized workers, fixed term employment, all of this giving you a lot of flexibility to tap the resources, the people who are going to walk the talk for you. Minimum, and it's not just the social security registration that is going to make it happen. It is all of it, even the code on wages, where the schedule for the minimum wages has been removed, the threshold limit for the payment of wages is no longer there. You are still waiting as to what the payment of bonus threshold limit for application would be, and the calculation of bonus is going to be something we have been criticizing in terms of the central government taking control over all these aspects, but that is the regulatory dimension which we are concerned about and should actually be taken forward. And then a very important aspect with regards to multiplicity of unions which the specific industry is facing, because of the recognition which is long absent from the trade unions law, the Trade Unions Act. It only dealt with registration. And it's now that you can see it happen, that recognition is something that has become regulatory, something that has given you a lot of clarity in terms of the negotiating union and the negotiating council. So the representations will decide who gets recognized and who gets importance, and it's not something that the employers are going to be charged of not taking into consideration. So that is what I would say in terms, because there was lots I could have spoken and would have given you time to put questions to me, but I would like to conclude with a very important quotation, because I'm here with Coal India. Human resource, how is it to be interpreted? And a definition, and a famous quote by Ken Robinson, an author within his own rights. Human resources are like natural resources, something that seems very relevant in this, for this audience. They are often buried deep. You have to go looking for them. They are not just lying around on the surface. You have to create the circumstances where they show themselves. Like coal, dig it out and make the best use of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for this session. I hope you all enjoyed this session. Now, may I now request our team to bring the autograph pad for ma'am. I would like to request Sri Charles Juster, the convener of this conference, to present this to ma'am. Everyone please clap. We would like to capture this piece of knowledge through your duly signed pad, having the code that you often use in your conference. I would like to request our team to bring the memento for ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we'll be proceeding for lunch, but post-lunch, we have two very important sessions of Dr. Santosh Bhave sir and Mr. Sanjeev Lahiri sahab, who will be addressing the audience. Post-lunch, we proceed for lunch and we'll be gathering back within half an hour. Since we are running short of time, we have paucity of time, I request you all to